able to pull back our dev timelines a lot so that we have more time before the set ships, after we've got all of the champions working, after we have the bones and the structure of the set to balance it, to make it as stable as possible. I think you're seeing some of that with Into the Arcane. Into the Arcane has a really great set structure. I think it's a really fun set with lots of good mechanics. It had some challenges the first patch, but I think we've fixed a lot of that, and we've seen a great metagame today with the Macao Open. So I'm optimistic that these structural improvements are going to pay fruit as we're going forward, and we're going to continue to improve on that.
And I've got to pay, I think, homage to Peter and the entire design staff on TFT. I think that they are really plugged into the live experience and understanding what's important to players globally as well. I think, we talked a little bit about this in the balance panel yesterday, but it's important for us to think about the global audience of TFT and our folks in China, our folks in EMEA, all over the world. And so that's an important input as we think about all these different pieces.
I know you have such a wide global audience, and so how do you actually balance all of the different tastes of the players that you have in your ecosystem? It's a big franchise now. I think that's really cool to get a chance to talk about.
Yeah, deliberately.
Yeah, very deliberately. and maybe I'll start and Peter can jump in. I think one of the things that's really important for us is having a lot of empathy. And so I think we often will watch streams or we'll play on those particular regions. A lot of members of our team are incredibly diverse from the entire kind of global ecosystem. And so I think that that's been really important for us to have that empathy and really understand from the ground. And then we talk to players. And I think that that's so important. We read Reddit. We are in Discord. We're trying to understand, how people are feeling about the changes that we're pushing. And then the most important is we play the game. We play the game constantly, and I think that that's such a key. You need to be able to connect with the player. You need to be able to be the player yourself. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of on TFT is that everybody on the team just absolutely adores the experience and loves making the game. And so it's been really inspiring.
And we also have community managers in all of our regions that are listening to their local communities and are able to relay that back to the dev team. As Jeff mentioned, social media is a big piece. We run player surveys as well. We gather data from a lot of different sources and then try to balance that all together to make choices that are the best for the franchise as a whole.
I think one of those choices that you made that people are loving so far is the Unbound Tacticians you just released into the game, Jinx and Warwick. Talk to me a little bit about the decision to make those Unbound Tacticians.
Historically, TFT's been really good at making cute characters. There's Little Legends, there's Chibi Champions, there's wonderful things if you want to express yourself as a cute tactician. We wanted to find ways if people wanted to be scarier or edgier, what are the ways that we can really capture that kind of fantasy? And so we tried a lot of different art styles. I think there were maybe 20 plus that we explored. The team talked about which ones they were the most excited about. We did player surveys to see which ones our players are the most excited about. Taking all of that together, Unbound, which was the idea of, we love the splash art that you see for League of Legends characters. How do we capture that in 3D? How do we make that something that you can actually play and that you can actually feel that's as good and as powerful as that splash art? And that's represented in the Unbound Tacticians. And I'm really happy to say that they've been extremely successful. They're among our most successful tacticians ever.
Well, if you had a bucket list tactician you want to see Unbound, what would it be?
Nocturne.
Ooh, it's a good one.
Mine is definitely Jin. I love Jin.
Tom Kench.
Oh, that's also a good one.
Chibi Tom Kench. Chibi Tom Kench.
Both.
Both. Why not both? I think mine would be Ivern. I think that would be.
Ivern's a good
one.
Ivern's
Very cool.
Yeah, I like that one. I think actually I might have stolen that answer from Sean, so thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, it's been so amazing to be able to watch how you have navigated the 2024 year, looking ahead to all of the news that you release for 2025 as well. I'm definitely looking forward to those set thematics. I think the last question I want to ask is, how do you choose which sets or which themes you actually want to create around? Into the Arcane, it kind of gives it to you on a silver platter in some ways, but you also come up with so many unique options. Like, I can't wait to have a battle for the best anime protagonist. I think that's going to be so fun.
It's a combination of a lot of things. It's what are the people on the team really excited about? What are community members really excited about? How do we balance across the year and across the years different themes? So we want to make sure that if we've got a really bright and colorful set, it's something like Remix Rumble. It's followed by something that's a little more serious, a little more toned down, like Inkborn Fables. It's really valuable to us and to our players to have just different experiences. And so we try to make sure that there's a mix of different sets when you're looking at into the arcane, into this cyberpunk fantastic city, into the shonen anime arc. That's an arc where all of these things are going to feel a little bit different. I think that's a powerful thing. So a balance between the team's excited about, what our players are excited about, and then just what makes sense in terms of our history.
I can't wait for all Ramus or
Food Fight Tactics.
Food Fight Tactics.
Food Fight Tactics.
And if that is your favorite, make sure you can tweet at Mort and let him know.
Especially about Ramus. I think that's the one he'd love to hear the most about. But final thoughts from all of you. Anything that you would like to say to all of the TFT fans that are out there supporting you and supporting the game?
I think for me, thank you so much for supporting us through all of the past 5 years. It's crazy. It's been such a wild ride. Riot and all of us on TFT are so invested in this game. We can't wait to continue to deliver even more elevated experiences in the coming years. So I think when you think about the next 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months, the best is yet to come. And I'm so proud of the stuff that we're cooking, and we're having so much fun. Like, that's, I think, such an important thing. A fun game can only be made by a happy team that's having fun. And so also thank you to everybody at Riot that works on TFT and that supports us. I think that we couldn't make this happen without all of you. So, yeah.
Yeah, to echo Jeff's point, I think you said it a lot, Jeff. I think this is the best time to be a TFT player. It's super exciting. Our team is really just cooking up the most incredible things, and everyone's super, super passionate about the game. And I can't wait for players to get their hands on what we've been working on.
Yeah, I just want to echo all of that. I'm so grateful for all of the TFT players. Just getting to meet people here in Macau is fantastic. If you're here, please come up to us. Please just say hi. If you got anything that you want to say, we'd love to hear it. We'd love to hear feedback. I'm just so grateful to the 300 million players that have tried out TFT. It is really fantastic, so thank you, everyone.
Well, I feel lucky to be at least even one of those 300 million players that gets a chance to play the game. Jeff, Christina, Peter, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. We are about to get ready for our final day of competition, so let's go ahead and count it down. We've got just a couple of seconds left, and we'll get right into that action.
家来到英雄联盟云顶之弈澳门公开赛决赛日的现场。Hello everyone, welcome to TFT Macao Open Final Day. Welcome. 经过2天激烈的角逐，最终有8位选手从全球512名选手当中脱颖而出，最终站上了决赛的舞台。After 2 days competition, the final 8 out of 512 players from all around the world are finally here. So, let's welcome our final 8. 接下来就让我们有请决赛选手登台。孟成宇。Let's welcome Stella Meihe. And let's welcome Jaduser. Now, 接下来，让我们欢迎小齐。下面我们即将看到的是黎洛，有请。And now, let's welcome Tidal. Now let's welcome Sadara. Now, 最后，我们邀请的是逝去。现场的各位观众朋友们，让我们再一次用掌声和欢呼声欢迎我们最终的决赛选手。Let's hear it one more time for our final 8.
And what an amazing top 8 we have here. Thank you so much to Canvas for this super cool intro. And I just love seeing the player characters come through when they walk through that passage. Of course, I'm not alone here on the desk. With me, Mordoc, Azael, and Clement. And we are all getting into a game 1 together. And I'm kind of giddy a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. The culmination of all the meta advancements, all the play. We've seen some really amazing play from these players, a lot of crazy stats, and so I'm excited to jump right in and see what happens.
I mean, it's kind of the culmination of all of their work. Comes down to this one moment, comes down to these couple games, right? You know, and it's so exciting to me to see, you know, which players are going to be able to rise to the occasion. I know I was talking to Saidera earlier. He said he got 0 hours of sleep. He was so nervous, so excited. And I think that's common, right? Like, it makes sense. You know, he said this is going to be the last event that he plays in, and he was coming in not expecting anything, right? You know, thinking, hey, I'm just going to go, I'm going to have some fun. He's in the finals. He's a couple games away, potentially, from winning the whole thing.
That would be the greatest underdog story. I'm looking at the entirety of the field. What a range of players we have. We have 2 returning champions. We have complete unknowns in Xiaoqi that just nobody knows anything about him. And we also have every single region representing. So whoever you're cheering for, you're at least going to have one horse in the race.
The scriptwriters did a good job. Bravo, bravo.
Well done.
Make it a little less obvious next time, though, you know.
Well, I do think in the players that have come through for the specific regions, there have been a bunch of surprises.
Yeah.
Like, if you had asked me who makes it from EMEA, who makes it from the Americas, who makes it from APAC, I'm not so sure I would have picked these specific names, and that is what I love about the open format that we have.
Yeah, some players definitely sort of shine through in these LAN environments, and especially when we're going to checkmate format, it's who has that experience. And I'm looking at the CN region because they play a lot more checkmate when it comes down to it. The other regions don't actually have checkmate in their formats at all for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking at right now is looking at some of the performance leading up to this event as well. You have to talk about Stellar Minhee and his higher than 50% first place rate. That is bonkers, and if he keeps playing
Absolutely
like that,
insane.
For checkmate, that's going to be wild. So right now, it feels like stats-wise, he is the favorite coming into this Final 8.
I would be so giddy to see that happen here, but I think we are getting ready to get that game underway. Just a quick reminder on that format, you already mentioned it in passing, Clement. We are going to be playing to checkmate, which means players need to reach a point threshold and then win one more game. In Vegas, I think we saw the longest format of that ever, 7 games.
Yeah.
And the TAC Crown is usually a little bit less. So I am really curious on where we're going to go. Any bets on how many games it's going to be?
I mean, Tidal has done this so many times, and whenever he's around, it usually goes pretty quick.
Yes.
So I'm gonna shot call 5.
His first win, wasn't it in 4 games?
It was
That's
4.
what I thought.
Yes.
It was just because I remember.
Oh, we were on the desk together.
And I was like, wait, it's done?
Yep.
Bro just rolled up, played 4 games, and was like, thank you very much.
Mic
I'll
drop,
take the title. I'll
boom.
take the check.
I'm pretty sure that's why they bumped the checkmate up to 20 points now.
Yes.
So it's like not going to be as quick.
Weird he hasn't
hopefully.
changed his name to Titles.
You can tell him to maybe go for that the next time. I'm sure he would be open to some feedback. But I was talking to Tamago, another Japanese player, this morning, and was saying, you know, I talked to Tidal. He seems confident, and he's like, it's going to be another world title for Tidal. I'm excited. But game is loading in. You can see all of our top 8 sitting patiently and calm as they wait for the beginning.
I mean, it's so interesting for a lot of these players. This would be their, first massive tournament win. But for Li Luo, he could win his second. You could actually, tie kind of where Tidal is at. Tidal could kind of take a stranglehold. No one else has won 2. He could win a 3rd massive tournament like this and really set himself head and shoulders above the rest of the TFT competitive world.
And calling back to Li Luo's win in Gizmos and Gadgets Mortar, you were also there with me. That was also a very dominating finish back then. He played an Exodia board to clutch it out, get that top 1. From very early on in that game, it was clear that Li Luo was going to take it. So I wouldn't count him out, personally.
Yeah, it would be such a breakthrough back to relevance. He's missed the last 3 TOCs. If he gets it here, the home ground behind him, it's going to be amazing.
This is the Teamfight Tactics Macau Open, and we are going to go into our game 1 here. Let's set the stakes and see who comes out on top of this one. All of our 8 competitors once more in the cameras.
Ooh.
All right, so we're already jumping onto the board here, and we can see, we didn't get to see the encounter, but clearly with the crabs going on here, we have a Scuttle Puddle game. And we've talked about this a bunch before, that when you get Scuttle Puddle, you are looking at extra econ, which is going to allow you to go to that 8 a little bit more comfortably, play around that, or you can use that to hit your rerolls earlier. So there's going to be a lot higher capped boards. The question is what style augment here, and Tidal starting off with a Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw, again, been a pretty good favorite for that Stage 2 and Stage 3 power. If you can get an Automata emblem, that can really help as well.
And Mini actually won a couple of games on the Kog'Maw reroll build. It's really interesting because over the tournament, Kog'Maw has been one of those champions where it has been harder to hit, but Mini has definitely pulled it off. And we forgot to mention, he is rocking the DSG title at this point.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Disguised always makes sure that they make finals, one way or the other.
I mean, Chloe, you were talking to him yesterday. He was kind of alluding to it, saying, oh, I'm going to take the jacket from Kyun and just give it to someone else. But Mort.
This is a big deal because we saw he sold the Kog'Maw to hit Econ, but then dropped 2 more 3 costs, which means this is an Econ Oper on top of Scuttle Puddle. So generally what happens here is every player pretty comfortably can get to 20 gold. You can even get pretty extreme and have like 30 gold on 2-1 if you want. You're going to be down items here, but so when we talk about that gold economy, a lot of these players, these challenger players, really know how to take advantage of this. So this is going to be even more extreme than a typical Scuttle Puddle game. So if we see something like even a gold augment, but let alone a prismatic augment, this could get wild.
I always find it really interesting, you know, the decision trees like on something like this, because you can also say, you know what, I'm just going to like full sell except for 1 unit and clear and make super early econ, but then you're going to get punished sometimes very heavily by someone who hits a stronger board and is getting the additional items. So when you have these econ openings, you know, it's always interesting to see how pros are going to manage that. You know, how much HP are they willing to lose? When are they going to actually do a slight roll to try to catch up? And it is going to be silver augment.
Yeah, the fact that it's a silver augment here kind of pushes that back a little bit. But again, the fact that most of our players are already at like 20, 25 gold here, that's going to be pretty nice. Yeah, Band of Thieves here is a pretty safe choice, especially knowing that there aren't a ton of items out there. That's just some nice combat power in the early game to be up a little bit of extra items here. And you can look on the right side here, for example, Tidal, 23 gold. That's going to give him a pretty big edge early on. And we're getting a look at our augments here. Big one to call out here is Sidera with the power-up. We've seen that before, which does mean the next augment will not be prismatic. So we know that information as well.
I feel like every time I kind of roll the dice on that, you are just praying for the next one to be gold.
Yep.
Because if the difference between a gold and prismatic feels so much bigger than a silver and a gold. So we'll see if he's able to kind of hit the lotto on that one.
Yeah, I 100% agree here. In fact, going from silver to gold is a lot less common, but when that happens, it hurts pretty bad. It feels like you didn't quite get the value you were hoping for. But we saw, you know, yesterday power-up leading to that prismatic, giving a pretty good edge to the players who were able to hit it.
I don't actually know, like, what is the odds on it being like? Is that something
if
that
you
I don't know?
If you pick it on 3-2, it's always prismatic.
No,
if you pick it on 3-2, it's always prismatic. Powered up.
Don't think that's true because
no, it's true. It's true. I checked it a lot of times. Unless it's
you're trying to throw down with the man who makes the game.
I was going to say,
there are definitely silver blank games. So on 2-1, it definitely can't be. And there's no silver. You're saying on 3-2.
Yeah, I'm saying 3-2.
Okay,
yeah,
yes, that's correct. Because there's nothing that's silver.
You said I'm correct.
Yes,
just
that is correct. But this is 2-1, not 3-2.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
On 2-1, so someone asked me this yesterday, and I didn't know off the top of my head, but I believe it's about 25-75.
So 25 that it's going to be another silver,
right?
And 75 that's going to be a gold.
Approximately, I believe. Okay. So
the
odds are
quite good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting because it is an augment that I like, but I've never actually known the exact numbers on it. I just believe in the heart of the cards.
You can get punished sometimes, but most of the time it's good.
Yeah.
When I asked about Liluo, the CN caster said that he's the most un-CN player ever because he is known as HP preservation and high tempo. Not really the best cap necessarily, but he's always making it in. If you look at his stats, he's like 5% first place and then 6% 8th place, like the perfect tournament style.
I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because, you know, in this checkmate format, you need to be good at both. You need to be good at, you know, getting to checkmate, but then a fourth isn't going to do it anymore. A third's not going to do it. A second's not going to do it. You need to win. So you really do need to be a master of both styles. And I think that is where, you know, understanding your spot, understanding, you know, how to play towards those win conditions becomes so incredibly important.
Yeah, I totally agree here, and especially we've seen so many times with the checkmate format that the person who hits there first usually does really, really well, ends up at like top 2. In fact, it feels like between all the championships and the Vegas Open was the only time it felt like somebody kind of came back from about that like 4th or 5th place spot with Malala winning on that Game 7. So
But
generally, though, we've seen Checkmate do pretty well.
Was also due to several conditions, right?
Yes.
Kevin Parker keeping the tournament alive with
Humbug
that
as well,
legendary Yone,
Yep.
Humbug clutching back up. Like, there was so much going on there that enabled this comeback to happen.
I mean, it's one of my favorite things about the format, too, is that once you're in check, you can become enemy number one. Like, everyone knows the tournament is over if you win, and you have to stop that person.
Oh.
Oh, Title gets a pan off of the carousel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see what he wants to do with that, because he is very rich at this point.
Yeah, a lot of gold to work with here, and a pan opens up some interesting options. Primarily, Bruiser Emblem's been kind of the most popular, but there's definitely a lot of options here. And we even saw him yesterday, you know, play the Ambusher line that has generally not been as popular using that Camille, but he took that into a really good, you know, second place as well. So some good options.
And I feel like the Bruiser option is actually really nice for a game number one. We don't have to be going necessarily for a first place. You know, Mundo, Twitch, Bruiser is not really super contested at all. So many people are playing emissary lines, and you often are going to have a good chance of being able to 2-star your units. And if you 2-star, you're going to be able to finish top 2, or excuse me, top 4, I think, for sure.
And I want to mention the Sentinel one. I feel like this is the first set where you can actually build into the Sentinel emblem. A lot of people forget that one. Really popular with the Heimer and the Academy builds.
And the Renata reroll, some people are playing that as well to even fit in there.
Getting a look at this board here, we do see the 4 Conqueror, and again, I've always talked about how I'm a big 4 Conqueror fan. He
I
actually
was going to say, we have an early Swain. Mort, do you want this one?
Yeah, but he does actually swap it back out for the Automata just for a little extra front line, using the Sorcerer to get a little bit more damage on Swain. Up against Lilo here, and you know, that Rebel side on the other side here with the set 2 is just going to be too much to deal with here, and so going to continue the streak. Our other Chinese player does get their streak broken, so only 1 win streaker right now.
I mean, honestly, you know, having the early Thieves' Gloves from your augment and then hitting a 2-star 2 cost like that, like really especially a melee 2-star 2 cost, pretty much guarantees you're going to be streaking. It's so powerful.
Now, right now, we're looking at our 2 players here who are both on a loss streak. And again, we talk about how rich they are. They're already at 50 gold here, but they still want to have that loss streak. So if they match up against each other, who's going to be the weaker player?
Someone's going to sell, I feel like. Because,
yeah,
I mean, they're both trying to grief their positioning so hard, and then at a certain point, it's like, do they run into each other? No, they don't.
They do not, so...
Oh, it's actually 3 players on 4 losses.
So one of them
Saidera and Salarmini are running into each other, and Title just kind of comes out of that contest.
I think Saidera is going to win. He didn't actually grief his positioning, but he did have the Draven in the front line, and these Morganas are getting a lot more done, so it looks like it's actually going to be Saidera that is going to lose, so really good for him, because he's going to get quite a good loss.
Yeah, definitely not.
That's actually close. Is the Swain going to kill them both? Oh, no.
I think Swain is stronger here.
Nope.
Wow.
All right, so DSG getting a good start here, keeping that loss streak going. We see Tidal as well with that loss streak here, so plenty of gold to work with here. And again, a lot of our players already in that 60 gold range. So now the question is, how do they convert it here? We're going into the Scuttle, which generally gives like a gold orb, for example, at some point throughout the game. Are we going to see some spatulas, some frying pans, some artifacts? Lots that could happen here.
I think the big question for me is, does Title find a component he can use with a pan? Last time we saw his board, it was still unslammed, so has that pan open? You try to get something you can use earlier so that you get the benefit of it earlier and then can come back. Would be interesting to see that.
He did have the Econ opening, so generally you do kind of catch up on components, you know, at this point. So he should be able to get quite a few components. You know, there's a good chance that he's going to have some slammable items. But my question for Title is, like, how deep do you go on the loss streak? Do you start trying to build a board now? Do you do a slight roll? We're seeing Stellar Minnie doing quite a heavy roll here, so he's going to be playing around this this Singed, Renata, Vex, you know, as well as the Morgana, you know, rolling quite deep here to stabilize.
It's really interesting. He's actually rolling on 4. So for this build, a lot of people choose to roll on 5 because of the increased chance of the Renata. He really wants the front line in place already. Yeah. Interesting with the item slam as well. He's not actually waiting for the Shojin.
Well, I think if you roll this heavy, you're basically saying I can't lose anymore, right? Like, so, you know, I think if you're going to wait for the Shojin, you keep the loss streak going. You at least wait to see what your next augment is. But with this choice, I do feel like you're committing to being stronger now. Like, he needs to try to preserve HP because he didn't hit anything, and it's going to be more of a slow build towards his full comp.
I think the issue I have with that is that there's players like Xiaoqi in here, and also Title, who also just invested into his board to try and get stronger. So with so many players trying to go for the loss streak, you know everybody else is powering up. And I feel like specifically Stellar Minhee here could have had the chance to just sit it out one more round, as you are going for the lower cost comps. But We are getting silvers, which means the power up on Sidera not
hit
as
the unlucky
strong.
25% chance. Wow.
Support cache, by the way, I was looking at some of the augment data. By far the most popular augment at the event. It was like, I want to say 2 to 3 times the pick rate of every other augment at the rate. Artifacts really popular in this set, but of course he didn't actually go for it. So, you know, he has kind of maybe feeling like he's too locked into one direction and was nervous about that with the AP line. They're a lot more popular for these AD lines. So since he's already slammed all his AP items, maybe feeling like, hey, I don't really think I want to go towards Zonia's or anything like that, and maybe be risky.
Interesting to see that Title actually picked up rerolls right here. You can tempo into it, and he also does have the buffet, which means any pan he uses should be easy to find what he wants.
Well, Jedu saw Sidera whiff on that power-up and said, well, I listened to Clement. I know on 3-2 I can't get that kind of outcome.
That's the
so picks up that power-up, is going to be down that silver for now, but we know that there should be a prismatic waiting at the end for Jedu.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's actually information for the rest of the lobby as well. The fact that we know it's now a silver-gold game, which is basically the lowest augment power you can get. So that's going to kind of nullify sort of that econ start we talked about here. And so, you know, we theorized at the beginning that there'd be some pretty high cap boards, but that's going to push us right back down to a pretty standard game, I think.
Do like the rolls from Minhee. A lot of the discussion was on where the power lies in that Renata line. Is it the Singe and the Morgana, or is it just the Renata? So that's the discussion on rolling 4, 5, or 6.
Well, and we even see some players yesterday were actually rolling on 7, right? And they were doing the Cambaron variant where they were playing more around Nunu and Rennie as the front line and playing kind of this like bruiser visionary style, keeping Cambaron in the entire time. And so there's a lot of different approaches, which is what I think makes it so strong. Title now, very early Heimer here, has 4 Academy in, has a decent front line, is on a 7 loss streak, so he is very rich. And if he can start to stabilize off of this early Heimer, he can just keep pumping levels and be in a really good spot.
Yeah, it's interesting here. Has that frying pan, which, like I said, right now if you're playing this line, you're probably looking at that Sentinel emblem. Yeah. If he can find, you know, a Reforger possibly, could go some other lines as well. The Heimer items are really good. There's not quite the Gunblade, but the fact that you have the blue buff JG as well, and you look at the sponsored items here, 2 of those items being sponsored on that Heimer dinger.
That is pretty good.
So it's not bad here. And again, I've taken a lot of flack over this weekend because, again, going into this event, everyone was like, Heimer's really weak. But Academy Heimer, we have seen be decently successful throughout this event.
There's another one.
Yeah,
we could see a very early Heimer too here, and it also gives him Sentinel.
Wow.
That's probably the best carousel you could ask for.
Yeah, that is going to feel really, really good. It's also interesting, you know, you touched on the power up for Jedusor, but he also is going pumping up. So 2 very heavily scaling augments. You know, yes, this is not the power that you're getting from Prismatics and whatnot, but like he's going to have a lot more power from his augments in the late game than most of the other players.
I also want to call out here that we have the Conqueror player right now who's sitting on 4 Conqueror, I believe is hitting around 60 stacks. When you've got so many people in the lobby sort of playing these lost streak lines and not really investing and waiting for their power-ups to go up, that's kind of a free ride for you. And, you know, Vertical Conqueror doesn't normally do that well, but the fact that you're just kind of playing against this weak lobby, that's a way for you to get ahead and sort of scale out of control.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because when the stacks get high enough, all of a sudden you're getting so much extra power from that line that Vertical Conqueror can become pretty reasonable. You know, you can push levels a lot more quickly, you're getting additional gold, then all of a sudden you hit a Mord and you're online.
Well, you say that as if it's so easy to hit that Mordekaiser. We have been seeing players have a lot of trouble with getting that last puzzle piece on the board, so hopefully that's not what's waiting there. But we were talking about this Sentinel emblem now confirmed on Title's board. I'm really curious on whether or not any of these shops hold that last Heimerdinger copy, because that would be such a big spike.
I mean, the big thing is he's got so much gold right now. I would expect, you know, he goes 8 on 4-1, going to do one of those, you know, high APM roll downs to just try to find one more Heimerdinger. Also try to get the Alaois out of the pool. We've seen a lot of people really fighting over those Alaois, and, you know, for example, yesterday the Setsuko just really couldn't find one because they were all out of the pool. So, you know, I expect him to do a pretty deep roll down right there on the 4-1.
I will say, Title is also one of the players with the highest APM I've personally ever seen. The way he rolls down is incredible to watch.
Yeah, so this is the board I was talking about, by the way. 4 Conqueror, lots of resources here, sitting at 94 out of 100 already. This Darius is really strong, has already found the Ambessa as well, and because he's on such a win streak, the Ambessa is providing that Emissary bonus, giving that extra 14 armor and MR that's going to be really tough for other people to deal with here. Goes up against Tidal, which is going to be one of the harder matchups here, but the fact that he has the Dragon Claw and the Swain too, my money's actually still on the Conqueror player here.
We'll see, though. This Heimer is kind of scaling up pretty fast, but none of the rockets are really hitting backline. It can get a little bit out of hand, but the Swain 2 going to be tough to deal with. And it looks like Heimer, I think, one more cast is going to do it.
Oh, it's close.
The Force Sentinel, that slam actually makes such a difference there.
Yep.
If you don't slam that pin early and have the Force Sentinel, he loses that round. So Tidal going 7 loss streak and now on a 3-win streak. He's preserving HP. He's going to be in such an incredible spot.
Look at that, he hit the LeBlanc here as well, so that solves the question of where does the AP items go on. A lot of times Swain is not the one you want on stage 4.
At least 2 and the LeBlanc and a Rumble. Not bad.
Yeah, the big thing I want to call out here is rolling on the PvE round. A lot of people normally would wait and try to greet it and do it on 4-1, but he gets ahead of the curve here, and I think that benefits really well. Finds the Elise. Still has 10 gold to work with here. A lot of items here in the Swain carry, so going to be pivoting into that Black Rose line a little bit here, playing around that Swain, so pretty cool.
We see that Tidal also has gone to level 8. Let's see if some of that money is getting invested, but more players are making moves. Checking in with
Warden
Lilo.
shot for Meng Chen Yu, but he's not actually the Conqueror player, so we'll see how heavily they want to roll. Lilo on the left is rolling some as well. Did pick up a pair of Elises. Not going to get the Elise 2 just yet. Is on a pair of Mundos as well. So actually a lot of pairs on bench. This is going to cause them to roll a little bit more heavily. Rolling down basically to true 0 to actually level up some of those pairs.
Man, if you're the Black Rose player and you see 2 other players find LeBlanc here, that has to be frustrating.
Absolutely. A big question for Leloy here is where does the... Okay, there are the Silco items. I was waiting for them to show up, and then he has all 3 of them on board, so very stable board at this point.
Yeah, Sidera is still just carrying this Zyra for now, and is looking like he's holding quite a few units on bench, but I'm not sure exactly where he's trying to go with his line, because he's still on 7, still sitting on a lot of gold.
Yeah, definitely struggling a little bit there. Does get a Dominator emblem here for Lilo. That's, I think probably a pretty safe pick here. He's already in that 4 Dominator line. That can get him to 6 Dominator. Now the question is, how long will it take to find that Mundo 2 and that Silco 2 to really elevate him up here? Doing a bit of scouting first, though, to make sure that that's the right choice, making sure he's not contested. On the side, by the way, Tidal does get the Heimer 2. That's a big call out here. And sure enough, Dominator emblem here, hopefully pushing him in. Finds the Ziggs right away. And so that is going to give him 6 Dominator, which is really nice early because the flat health shield from Dominator does start to go down in power as the game, but at this point, very valuable.
We are checking in with Jeru, who is the player that picked power-up, so we do have our Prismatic Augment coming on through here as well.
Artifactory. It's a very high power one, but he does have to wait around before he can get most of his items on.
Situ also on power-up, goes for the Randuin's Augment.
Yeah.
I mean, double Jace is always one of those things where it's like, you're on level 8. If you could just hit that, all of a sudden you have something that's going to really propel you in towards the late game.
Yeah, I'm actually a little worried about the situation here, especially with Artifactory. The question is, how many items are you transforming? What do you hit? And it's kind of out of your control a little bit.
Yeah.
It feels like Artifactory on 3-2 is much better. It gives you time to see what you hit and then adapt to it. But on 4-2, this could go very wild and out of control.
I mean, we've talked about this before. I just think it's one of those augments that you want to take when you have, tanks that need items, AP units that need items, AD units that need items, so it's end tempo, as you say, because it's like, if you're locked into a full AD line,
the AP ones are
going to screw you completely.
And I think Jedusa, he got a good role there because he is playing Emissary, so he can flex into all of them. But we did see Tidal actually has the Corki 2 already, which does take some options away.
And it looked like he was re-rolling every single item except for the Even Shroud. So he kept the Shred, and he was re-rolling every other one. So we'll have to actually get back to his board and see how he fared. And as we're watching Lilua up here against... Okay, now we're going to swap over. So this is Sidera against Tidal. And we have Corki 2. He has the Ezreal 2 with that Sentinel emblem. He has the Heimer 2. It's going to be able to take this, and did find the 1 copy of the Alawi. Is sitting on a second one on bench, as well as that Jace on bench as well. So I don't really feel like he needs to roll anymore. At this point, I feel like he can probably just go 9, unless he's really concerned about all the Alawis getting taken out of the pool.
Really good Jeduso combo coming out here. The trench coat into the Zanya, so it kills the AP items for him as well as giving him a great tank.
Yeah, the value of the trench coat Zanyas is just so much to get through here. Normally we see that on something like a Violet, but that time it was on the Vi, the late game Vi, which can do a lot of work here. And so we're getting to that point here where Minhee, for example, really hit the Renata 3 and the Singe 3, but has been struggling a bit and is getting really low on health here.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, when you play that sort of a line and the other boards are getting really strong really fast and you're losing early, it's like you generally just bleed out. There's not really a lot of kind of comeback mechanics. You know, you're not just like, okay, well, now I'm going to push levels and cap out high. You know, you're kind of just stuck where you are. You can try to keep rolling and get some of these 2-cost 3-stars, but it is very difficult.
Yeah, so right now looking at the health totals, we have 2 players struggling at sub 20 health. No one going to get knocked out before the anomaly or anything, but Minhee with 2 losses could be out before PvE. On the top end, our 2 world champions are the 2 people that are win streaking. Lilu in particular, 90 health, sitting very comfortably. Our second place player at 89 health, and then Tidal on that 6 win streak right now. So far, looking like the experience is mattering, at least for this game.
Well, it is the first game of the day, and I will say the set champions, you know, they have a little bit more experience in playing under pressure, playing on a big field like this, so maybe that is still subject to change. I do want to talk about C2, though, because we did get a glimpse of that board, and I think he was really hoping for the Prismatic to box him out, finds that random Otland, and I don't think that was really what was needed. Maybe the other choices weren't as great, so now is kind of back against the wall.
He does win against Cider, who has the most difficult board to parse out, and we just saw Jedu, so he has no offensive items on his board whatsoever, so that's a big red flag so far.
Yeah, he had double mittens. He had the Mana Zane on his Caitlyn, and then he had that you know, setup that we talked about on the Vibe, but could be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, we get our champion view here, and I have to say I like the backline dominator Elise. You see, you know, mostly the time Elise is being used as frontline for that stun, that utility.
Does a lot of damage.
Yeah, but backline does a lot as well, and with the Dominator to scale that up, as well as the adaptive helm sort of acting as that Shojin, you've got decent frontline here. Already hit the Mundo too. You know, has that extra health. So this feels like the kind of game that worst case scenario, you're going like second, maybe a terrible third at worst, but really good position. The only thing that would really cap this off would be finding that Silco 2 to make sure that you've got all the power you need.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tidal's in a really great spot as well. Like, he elected to not continue rolling for that Alawi, which I think is correct. I think you can just push levels. Your board is more than strong enough, you know, to actually get a first place. You're going to need to be 9. You're going to need to get some more legendaries in there.
I was saying he's 50 gold, already found the J, so once he pops that on there, then he can transform the JG into a sponsored item as well. That's just a massive power spike waiting to happen.
Not only that, he's also holding an additional copy of the Corki, which he already has at 2-star. So either looking for the high cap of Corki 3, or just saying, I'm going to deny this a little bit longer for the other emissary players and make sure it's out of the pool for now.
That feels really bad for Jeduso because he was trying to go into that line with the Mana Zane.
That was close. So
It's a little close
gonna
fight.
stay alive.
Yeah, he does have the comeback story anomaly.
Oh, it's calculated.
It's going to have to be a good story more.
It is. It's going to be a bit of a struggle here. You know, DSG not really starting off the way they'd want,
DSG
unfortunately.
curse.
Yeah, a little bit. So we'll see here. But looking at this board here, 145 out of 150 on the Conqueror stack. Still playing around that Swain, but has the LeBlanc as well, the Elise 2, the Ambessa 2. So pretty interesting board there.
Absolutely. It's been a while since we've seen like a Swain full carry, but I think what's interesting is you can actually frontline the Swain with that anomaly. He had Touch of Frost as well, so he can actually move his board. There's a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, goes level 9 already. Very rich on this side. We talk about how Conqueror was giving those extra rewards. He has so much gold to roll here. Finds the Jace, is going to put that in. And
Speaking of rich.
Swain, yeah, just a lot of rewards here.
Title on 90 gold also goes to level 9. Now Dig Steve tries to find some of these legendary upgrades as well. Side-by-side view of both of our players.
Oh,
Let's see what comes through.
as well, by the way.
Yeah, you know, you just pick up what you find.
We'll see if he's going to actually elect to buy more, because I think there was another Heimer player, was there not? Or is he the only
No,
Heimer
there
player?
was somebody who had them on their board, but they weren't.
They weren't going to commit to it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is an angle, right, to actually look for that as an out. You know, already going to be on 5-1, and he still had gold to roll. We'll see if Minhee can survive here, but it's not looking good at all. I do think he's going to be our first player eliminated.
Oh, that Twitch is ramping up.
It's close. It's actually really close.
Oh, no.
So I want to call out here that we took comeback story at 2 health, but we put it on the Renata. A lot of Renata's power is also the shields she provides, and so damage amp isn't really helping those shields. The comp just came online a little too late, unfortunately, and so that is going to be our first 8th place. Good news is you've got another game, but another 8th here, another 7th, and you might just be out of the way.
Oh, there's a Twitch 3. We just heard the crowd go wild while we saw that camera on Stellar Mini, but that was the reason for it. Huge upgrade on C2.
Now I want to call out here, and this is one of those things that players will give me grief for, but Twitch 3 actually not one of the more impressive 3-star forecasts.
True.
The problem with a Twitch 3 is that you still kind of have to ramp up a bit. And the problem is he does only have Mundo 1 on the front line right now. So if somebody were to burst through this Mundo 1 quickly, there is a risk here. We're not out of the woods just yet. We're in a decent position, but again, that Mundo 2 is going to be really important.
I do agree.
Another player eliminated. Jedusor takes a loss here in that first game as well, and so does Saidera.
Wow, a lot of our, our non-local players.
I was about to say,
out.
did EMEA in America just go 6, 7, 8 here?
Yeah.
Is that what just happened in game 1? That is.
See, we don't talk about that.
So, oh, there's a Victor in shop for someone. I can see it.
Yeah.
That's getting clicked.
That's going to be for title.
Yeah.
Champion finds the victor here.
Well, so now for title, you are for sure going for a 3-star forecast, right? I think
have to.
you have to when someone does hit that kind of a board. Yes, I agree. Twitch needs some time to ramp up, but you still need kind of a giga cap board to be able to actually beat that.
Oh yeah, no, it's still a Twitch 3, right? We're talking about instead of a 2.1 average, it's like a 2.4. It's still an insanely good champion.
He's on 6 Alawies though, 5 Corkis, 5 Heimers, and 17 gold. So has decent odds to hit one of those, honestly. He's got quite a bit of health, 55 health, still wins. You've got 4, 5, 6 rounds left in this game, and
multiple
you could get
outs.
one of those. Yeah, exactly. You have 3 outs that are all reasonable. There's another Corki, so that would be his 6th Corki. Then it'd be 6 Corkis, 5 Heimers, 5, or rather 6 Alawies as well.
And 2 Jaces and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yep. And 2 world champions.
Yeah, he's got a lot to work with here. But yeah, so right now, going to keep an eye on that Twitch 3. Again, see how that goes. Looking at the board, has not found the hasn't found the Mundo yet. So yeah, title is going to get up to 6 Corkis here. The question is, how long do you hold the gold here, right? Title on this 11 win streak, so feeling really comfortable with that Heimerdinger right now.
Yeah, I mean he's on no gold right now, so he did roll down. So we'll see, what he has hit. He is 1 off Heimer. Now the question is, does he sell the others? So he's 2 off Corki, 1 off Heimer. I don't think at this point you
so
sell.
healthy.
No.
You kind of
just wait
chill.
and roll it down after PvE, or you can roll every phase.
I was gonna say this is a 6-1 roll down for sure.
That's
here.
what I think, especially if I only had the Heimers, I might be so worried about them getting taken out of the pool that I'd keep rolling true 0 every round. But I think because you have 3 obvious outs here, I think you can afford to eco up a little bit and see what you hit.
And another point is Citru has no gold to actually deny him anymore, so he can definitely wait.
We do have another player that might get eliminated in this first game, though Moon Chunyu is fighting, trying to beat Xiaochu's board, but it's not enough. One more player out.
Yeah. Definitely felt like the lower hand compared to Li Luo, who rolled faster than him, and they were on the same lines.
Yeah, Victor, not the bailout he was looking for there. The stun, helping a little bit, but not enough to beat the Dominator AP scaling. Just ends up being really strong. And that's the thing with Title's board. Title was on this win streak. He had a really strong board here. And so being able to add that Victor sort of elevates it another +1 that's going to make it pretty hard to top this win streak.
We're getting closer. 1 off the Alawi, 1 off the Heimerdinger.
What beats a 3-star forecast? 2
3-star forecasts.
There we go.
Or 1 better one.
True.
And I do feel like Heimer 3 is going to be a lot harder to beat, but we'll see. They're going to be matching up against each other. We'll see how the Mundo 2 that has been upgraded, looks like it is giant size there in the middle.
Yeah.
Also
holding one of the Alawis, so has heard at least that call. Doesn't have a lot of gold to work with, but any Alawis and Heimerdinger C2 will find are getting picked up here as well.
That was actually kind of close, which was scary.
That's Twitch for you.
That's what I was saying. Twitch needs that ramp-up time, with the Victor slowing down that ramp-up time for 2 seconds. That vulnerability window that the Victor creates also, that's a time to burst down the Mundo where he's not healing. So now, big thing to note here is we are on Scuttle Puddle here.
Yes.
So this isn't going to kill anybody, but this is going to be 2 more item anvils, which means we've got 2 more full items to add to our composition here. And if you look at Title's board, you're either looking at something for the Rumble or something that you can just throw on the Victor for a little bit of extra power.
Oh, wow. Look at C2's board. One of each holding there on his bench.
Yeah, but there still is one more.
There's one left, but obviously harder to hit now.
Yep, of course.
Good awareness, good awareness. Okay, Corki's completely out. Let's see if Title spots this. If he knows this, he should sell his Corkis.
Yeah, the thing is, Title's in a position right now where he can wait this out. I don't think you sell here. I think you chill. You're still at 43 health here. You go maybe 2 more rounds and try to make something happen. He also found the Rumble upgrade here, so that's going to be extra power as well. So I'm not too worried about this position.
I think the problem is that the player that's holding the units is C2. So that is the player to beat. That is the player that's not getting knocked out. So if you don't want that player to hold more of your copies even still, you kind of need to make something happen.
Xiaoqi as well is holding a Heimer in the top right and a Corki. So
only Alawi left open.
Yeah, so only Alawi, and that might be out too. We haven't actually seen everyone's board, so they are going to be holding this. They're trying to deny that win condition.
Now, in order to deny the win condition, you do have to deny the wins here, and Title is still playing such a strong board that he is able to win that fight. So, you know, as much as he may not hit this, he may not need them.
You know what's actually funny is I feel like, in a way, if I'm Xiaoqi, I actually would rather have Title get the 3-star because he can then kill the bot player with the Twitch 3.
Correct.
Whereas I think by holding them, all that's going to happen is you're less health than Title anyway. Now you're going to go 3rd instead of 2nd, right? So I think it's actually better for Title to hit it, kill the Twitch player who's low, and then you say, okay, well, whatever, I go for 2nd.
That depends on matchmaking, though.
It does.
If the Twitch player runs over you first.
He has more HP, though.
With 4 players left, that matchmaking is going to play out. I 100% agree with this play.
I think
that's the type of play that, you know, these players may not be as experienced to be thinking about, though. It's not something you would typically do in a ladder, but in a tournament, I 100% agree.
Corki has been sold on the side of Title, but we do have Title going up against Li Luo, and that might be another player getting knocked out here. Cutting it close, Silco does go down, and that will be a big hit for...
We do have to mention there is another 3-star forecast on the board, and Bessa was just found by Sichu. So it's going to be really fun, a double IE.
C2 is out because of that. Lilo also out. That means Title now has a chance to once again find that Heimerdinger.
Oh, Xiaoqi, sorry.
Yeah, Xiaoqi found the Mbessa.
And there's the Alawi 3. The Alawi's hit.
But I don't think the Alawi is going to be enough against the Mbessa. If the Mbessa can get past it at all, right? Like if it's not lined up with it, I think the Mbessa just kind of kills everything, no?
Yeah, so
this is like generally the carries outpace the tanks.
The Mbessa does not have any lifesteal, though, so that's kind of an interesting thing to keep out.
Let's see here.
But this is a good side.
Oh, this is a fine Mbessa. This is 2 crit items. When this thing casts, things are going to die. Is on the back line here.
No stun from Victor.
Oh, look at that heal.
Yep. It's going to be able to heal up.
Didn't get onto the Corki or the Heimer.
No, yeah, this is not.
And now the Alawi's tanking it, so he's actually going to lose. That was some poor pathing from the Mbessa. I thought he had the right positioning. It ended up going back towards the melee, though, instead of into the back line.
No Heimerdinger in the carousel. That's the big important one.
Yep. Gonna get an even shroud here, maybe give some extra damage to that Mbessa. And
still lacking armor pendant.
The Alawi, the thing to talk about the Alawi as well is, yes, she's incredibly tanky, but the way the 3-star 4-cost tanks scale is they get a ton of damage as well. So even though like Heimer and Corki might be on the right side, Alawi can just kill things by herself on the left side. So does find a Swain 3 here. That is a decent upgrade. It's no 3-star 4-cost, but it's not bad, and still correctly holding that Heimerdinger just to make sure we don't elevate all the way. That being said, you've got your top 2. You've got to feel really good about this. And, you know, again, the story here has to be Title. You know, we talked about how good he is in checkmate. Starting right off with either a 1st or a 2nd has got to be scary for the other competitors.
And this time the Mbessa is lined up with the Alawi, which does not bode well for that Mbessa. Both the carries already pummeling this Mbessa. It is trying to heal up, does dash back, and we'll see if that's going to buy the time. The Victor stun's going to come through, though. And again, the Alawi channeling and channeling. That is the damage you talked about, Mort. Lets the hammer drop onto the Mbessa. And that's going to be Title taking game number 1.
And in what a way. You were on the panel this morning, Azael, and he was kind of asked, like, how do you prepare? How do you play? And he says, oh, just based on the format. Well, listen up. If the format is checkmate, Title's just going to run with it. He's shown this again and again. The only double set champion we have in TFT at all, and also the currently reigning champion, and that is just somebody that wants to hold this title for now.
And I mean, it turns out, depending on the format, styles can change, but going first is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about Minhee getting 50% win rate in the group stages, and now Title has 50% win rate in checkmate format overall. So that's just absolutely crazy. Another whole level. I do want to give props to Xiaoqi. We didn't talk about it, but I think he channels the spirit of the audience here. He is a complete unknown when it comes to competitive. We don't have any information or histories on him. To go up against Title, make it to the final lobby, surprise everyone, that's got to be a big plus.
Yeah, and I think if you look at his board too, right, this is a pretty unconventional board that you don't see a lot of here. Is using the emissaries, but we typically with emissaries we see things like the Corki, instead choosing to play around that backline Swain and play a little bit of that sorcerer line. So showing that emissary can be flexible in a lot of different ways here. And then Lilua, who had the Dominator board, that also did really, really well. We can see the records here. On the bottom side, unfortunately, our America players and our EMEA players going 6, 7, 8. So home field advantage.
Just rub it in, Mort. It's okay. I'll just cry a little.
The home players, you know, have a little bit of shine here in the first game.
I think rightfully so, but we're going to take another look at the highlights of this game. And, well, maybe depending on who you're rooting for, also the low-light test player eliminations will show up in this as well.
Yeah, this was a fight where he had the Renata 3, but it just shows how close it was. That comeback story, not really doing it here. Goes up against the Twitch, you know, that was just such a really strong Twitch here. The Twitch able to output that damage, has ramped up once the Ginsu stacks goes, gets the kill here, and sends, unfortunately, our DSG player into 8th place. You can see here kind of trying to fight that off here. He's been doing so well up until this, so that 8th, a little unconventional. And here's the roll down where we hit the Twitch 3 on 5-2, and from that point on, the rest of the lobby is on a clock, right? You see that 3-star forecast. How do you beat that? And so everyone else trying to stay alive. This is where we've got our top 3 here, and Liluo does get knocked out by Title, and that Heimerdinger just playing so well, that 6 Sentinel, and this gets down to our another play here with the Twitch 3. We talked about this fight being very close, but the Ambessa gets on the Twitch 3, knocking it out really fast, and that is going to be the end of the Twitch 3. I think going third with a 3-star forecast, not really what you want to go,
he
but
went
it still
fourth,
gets top
by the
4.
way.
Yeah.
You could see his read his expression.
But I think the same thing happened to him that happened to us. You look towards Title because you know he was already close before that Twitch 3 came online, and then Xiaoqi in the shadows just kind of builds up that Ambessa, and no one really clocks it.
Yeah, and we can see there that final fight here giving Title the first place. That's going to be 8 points towards that 20, towards that checkmate. And again, this is his comfort zone. We've seen this might be the 3rd big tournament where he does well. It is just one game. We don't want to jump to conclusions, but you can see here kind of a fan favorite right now, starting to build up that rep that he might be the king of TFT, and I think a win here would certainly cement that.
And he's done it in a style that we see him do a lot in checkmate, which he really prefers that open loss streak. He doesn't do that much when he's playing domestically, but when it's on the big stage, loss streak into the extra emblem, into some really, really good strong roll down powers with the Heimerdinger and the Sentinel line.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I think a masterclass of a TFT game from several of our competitors here. Really, really cool to see. Personally, I also think this might have been the most forecast 3 stars we will see, hopefully, maybe.
Seen a lot at all.
Yeah, I'm really surprised.
Yeah, just the extra economy. We talked about how not only was it Scuttle Puddle, but it was the double economy drop at the beginning. That allowed players to reach a pretty comfortable level later. We even saw some power-ups as well, and the fact that everyone in the lobby was generally playing pretty weak. We saw a lot of lost streak in stage 2, and a few players that converted into lost streak in stage 3 with those power-up augments. So everyone was kind of waiting to come online later, and that allowed a few of our players to reach level 9 with like 50, 60 gold, which put them in a great spot.
Yeah, we are going to be going over to our friend Huperson, who's going to show you a little bit about Project K, and we'll see you for Game 2 afterwards here at the TFT Macau Open.
Okay, so it's Sunday. This is final day of the TFT Macau Open, and we're in the booth in the gameplay of Project K. Project K has been announced, and it's so amazing to have a card made with so many familiar faces, and you have like different archetypes that are working out so well. You have Jinx with a very aggro tempo deck. You need to use your resources too fast, but maybe if you use it too fast, you will have energy to ramp up into the late game. The other one that can really ramp up is Bolivar. It's so amazing to have so many additional units, big monster coming up into the field, and then you can go for more flexible play, maybe mid-range with the Yasuo, going for additional damage, going out, moving whenever you want. So actually the flexibility is amazing. We had a chance to talk with developers, so this is the final day. If you're in TFT, Macau, come to the gameplay, enjoy it, and try to play it with the favorite decks. So Project K is coming amazing, and it's your turn to enjoy it too. Wow!
Ooh, very cool to see that first game play out. I'm very excited to be back to dig into the second game of action. And so, yay! Who's excited?
I'm super excited. Tidal has had such a good start. And talking about Project K, I wonder if there's going to be a player that's going to be a 2-time champion in both titles. Is that coming soon?
Ooh, I feel like the closest that we've had so far is Alan ZQ in Legends of Runeterra, right, Panda?
That being said, he seems to be a little bit cursed when it comes to TFT, not able to make the day 3s despite dominating on ladder. So it'll take a little bit longer, I think, for the 2-time champion.
Also, Panda, welcome.
Thank you, Necro.
Hope you're having a good time so far.
Very excited. The first game was so exciting. I think as you mentioned, Clement, the split between regions, having someone to root for no matter where you're from is always great news.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately for our America and EMEA, I'm going to rub it in a little bit more, but 6, 7, 8, not the start you're looking for here. I think this is a chance for a lot of our hometown China players to really prove. That being said, again, from our APAC region title, going off to that big lead here. And so the question is, we've seen checkmate format so much at this point over the years. It's always a question of like, how does that game 2 and game 3 play out, right? Do we see, it kind of flip and everyone's even? Or do we see like 1 or 2 people really run away with the show, and that sort of creates the narrative? So this is the game where we start to see that narrative build and what's going to happen from here on out.
Title's only 12 points away from that checkmate, and I love to watch those scenarios where there's one person in check and the rest of the lobby is uniting and trying to stop and make sure the show goes on. Those are the really highlight situations to see if players are familiar in playing with checkmate format. How do you dodge the denies?
That's a great point. Checkmate format is a very unique way that we see TFT get played out in tournament format. Oftentimes we look at these tournaments as cumulative points. But even just the rest of the TFT Macau Open followed a very different format.
I think it justifies the kind of warping of, do I contest someone? Do I hold certain units? You have to have this extra layer of strategy that you usually don't have in normal games because you're not incentivized to have it. But in Checkmate, everything changes. As you mentioned, not just one player griefing you, but maybe the entirety of the lobby making things impossible. We saw with Tidal back in Runeterra Reforged, where he was able to delay opening Tome specifically because he knows everyone was watching his perspective, and that allowed him to have an edge up.
That's the thing I actually wanted to talk about, is because it feels like if anyone knows the checkmate format, it's Tidal. And I remember because I was casting that game thinking, ooh, he's in a rough spot. He's not doing great. But what he did, like you said, he held the tome, he held everything, and did one big transition that basically meant no one could really react to it. It was sort of like, what's he doing? We're not sure. Oh, he has an amazing board now. What do we do? And that's how he had that 4-game win. And that's kind of how he played the last game, actually. He was like, lost streak, figure out what my augments are, and then boom, transition into that Heimerdinger I hit. And so if like this was the game where he was in check, I don't think anyone would have been able to stop him, right? Like, so he's shown that he can play in a way that the other players may not be able to react to.
And most of the games that we've seen from Tidal on the main stage have all been very much that open fort style, trying to lost streak, and then go into those uncontested lines. And Tidal's one of those players. Clement, I think you had a wild statistic for how Tidal's able to do in the final lobbies.
He's up to 50% now, but I do want to mention, actually, Tidal's journey here, the reason we call him the protagonist is because it's never always that smooth. He was actually 4th place in the previous 2 rounds of cuts. So, hearing in his interview, he was very nervous for himself. He was not like super sure that everything was going to go well. He was talking to a lot of the APAC players. He was in Araya and Haruru in the same round. 3 of them going up. They all advanced from that round, but things were actually kind of close. It's not Tidal just dominating everything for sure.
It's funny because if you only pay attention to checkmate days and final days, you think Tidal is literally untouchable. But if you look at his journey, qualifying even to the TAC crowns, it always seems like he's not that dominant. He has maybe a little bit behind on the meta, but then everything just seems to click into place. So I think maybe he just turns it on when he needs to. Other than that, he plays more top 4 style. The ability, I think, like you mentioned, Mortdog, of not just winning a game, but winning a game with the extra layer of people contesting you. That is what most impresses me, and I think players who have not been in a checkmate format like this before, having to adapt on the fly on this day is one of the difficult things.
Now, that being said, I hope we're not, we're talking about him a lot here because obviously he's good. There are 7 other players, but hopefully we're not caster cursing him here because, again, what I'd hate to see is the very next game, he struggles and goes 7th or 8th because, again, we have seen that throughout the groups, right? It hasn't been a dominating performance. It's been some tough 4th, some tough 6th. So we'll have to see how the next game plays out.
Wow, look at that support. We've got some support for Jadusaur there, Title. Oh, very cool.
Lots of French players coming in here. And I do want to mention the French players had such good success competing in CN. They actually won 2 Summit Invitationals with Potty Bowl and also Double 61. So there is that kind of fear factor in the home crowd when it is regarding this new wave of French players.
Jadusaur especially, I talked a bit to him yesterday. He told me his default game plan would be Silco Dominators. I had the chance to watch a lot of his games in the top 16. He played a lot of Silco Dominators, so I think the game plan for top 4 especially is very good. I think for day 3, he has to adjust. He has to play more for a comp that can win out.
Let's get into the second game of the final day of competition here at the TFT Macao Open. 8 players entering into the fold once again. Can we see anybody topple that first place that Title had? Just kick things off.
Talking about dominance, Meng Chunyu was actually one of the best players when it came to the group stages that we've seen before. He comes from the JOC. He does have that checkmate format experience behind him. And to do it in 2 different sort of settings, it's both TFT, but he usually plays mobile. Being able to dominate on the PC scene as well is such a good sign.
I feel like PC is like unleashing the training weights after playing on mobile.
True.
Right? The roll downs are really hard on mobile sometimes, and so you get the key to re-roll, and then you also have your mouse to reposition things, and so yeah, we'll see.
Even for some players, it could be the first time playing on 0 ping. I imagine that has to feel so crisp in terms of the roll down, positioning last second. I think it really allows players to express themselves to the highest possible level in a day 3 like this.
Yeah, it's like why we buy 1 in the show match, right?
Yep, you saw it there.
Yeah, like I said, getting to play on the 0 ping. That being said, it's still a situation where your nerves have got to be high. For a lot of these players, this might be their first big tournament result. Doing it in front of a live audience here, that's got to be pretty nerve-wracking. And you can see kind of everyone, how they're dealing with that, right? Some people in that slow focus. Some people, you see a little twitching going on here. So everyone figuring out how they can get in that right mindset as we go into the game too.
I do want to point out the pen and paper that's provided to the players there. This is something that when I was talking to my study group, we really wanted the players to do more of, is you want to track the points that everyone has. And this is a huge point for Cider yesterday, actually. He was on 8 points after game 2. He tracked who he needed to actually grief and hold cards from, and that was a big part of his win over Ironbog to get into the finals. Even more important in checkmate format, I'd say.
Even for the comps players are angling, you can kind of understand if they're realistically going to finish on that comp in stage 4 or maybe pivot off of a reroll or go for a win-out comp depending on where their points are. So the overall meta strategy of where players are in the tournament is so relevant, especially in game 4 and game 5 where someone might be in checkmate, things get a little bit more dicey.
It's a really cool sign. I love the illustrations that we're seeing on some of these player support signs as well. We got the really cool porcelain Aurelia portrait on one of them. Title has had a ton of support in the audience. I think he might have had the loudest reception to his player walkout when all of the players actually hit the stage.
Yeah, it turns out when you win a bunch, you end up being pretty popular. And so, yeah, definitely looking really good here. And again, trying to get in that mindset. Has to feel good about that first place, but still a long way to go here. We're only at 8 out of 20 to get into that check. So,
and I do want to mention that Title is becoming sort of an ambassador to the TFT game overall. There's a lot of praise in Japan coming out from him. He won the Japan Esports Awards this year and got to link up with a lot of different titles, no pun intended, especially with League of Legends. We saw it with Evi as well. They were playing, he was teaching him TFT, so he's bringing a lot of new players in to the genre. It's a great sign to see.
All right, now let's get into that game number 2 here of our competition. See what this game has to offer. We got to see some crazy things in that first game, like a Twitch 3. I wonder if there are a couple of other 3-star forecasts that might be on the table.
I'm excited for the encounter. Yesterday, at least on main broadcast, we saw a lot of Vi component animals. I think just the right amount of variance without it being too warping. I wonder if some players who maybe need to bounce back from an 8th or a 7th are looking for the higher variance encounters with things like Mbessa maybe coming through. Mordog, I know you're already rolling your eyes.
Mbessa's like, look, what we do as a designer versus what we want as a player sometimes are two different things. And I'll say, I get like why we have Mbessa. There's a lot of players out there that love it. From the competitive side, and as a player in my ranked games, I cannot stand that encounter. That was sometimes you just get put in the most awkward situations that are hard to deal with. And like, I would hate to be, for example, Stellar Minhee, you're going in, you end up with a golem, and you're just like, what do I do here? It can tilt you pretty hard. So I'm hoping for less that. And like you said, I like more like the Vi, or even honestly like Echo, right? Like getting all prismatic, it's still something that you have a lot of agency in. You can put yourself like, which path do I want to go down? Those to me are sort of where you get the highlights of TFT.
Can I shake your hand more, Dog? Because I have been saying on broadcast for so long, wandering trainers at the checkmate format sometimes is a little bit iffy. There definitely are high roll moments and low roll moments coming into that.
Yeah, well, we already saw a game on broadcast where just like sometimes you get the unplayable triple trait, and then it can be a little bit tough. We're just,
okay?
Huh? Can we go okay?
As an encounter?
Yeah, let's get. We'll have okay. Just Ramus shows up in the middle of the board. Just FYI, looks like we are trying to reset the lobby, and then we will be getting ready for our players to get back into the game. But I am excited to see Echo. I'm excited to see Heimerdinger. I think those two are some of the most fun. I think Crab Brave also has delivered some great moments for us on broadcast.
And we can talk about a couple of the new ones that we see into the Arcane Evolved here. There is the Warwick one, the Victor one that gives you the earlier 6 cost. Warwick is kind of just Spoils of Wars on automated. And of course, there's the Jace one, which gives you the artifact. Which one would be your favorite, Mordog?
And Mel.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so of those ones, I feel like the Jace one is really exciting. You get a single artifact. You can kind of pick which line you want to go. And artifacts tend to elevate champions in a new way. So a lot of lines that maybe struggle a little bit, like say like the Nocturne, all of a sudden have new styles where they can really highlight. There's also just some creative uses. You can get some economy. So that one generally to me feels like a chance for players to sort of flex their flexibility, if you will. Whereas some of the other ones like the Victor and the Mel, it feels like you're sort of at the mercy of being told how to play. For example, I as a player, I like win streaking a lot. And so when you see the Mel encounter, it's like, ooh, now all of a sudden win streaking isn't as good. I might need to consider different options. And so I'm personally more of a fan of the ones that you get some control over how you want to play.
I think with Jace especially, having the theory prepared in terms of how not just single artifacts, but 2 artifacts together work with certain champions, especially as openers, you open that up a bit more. But we are finally ready to go into the game. Game number 2, the countdown begins. The encounter will very quickly show up on our screens, and we'll be able to know what is in store for us for the second game of this day 3.
Yeah, we'll have to see here. Transition. Oh,
Vika.
Okay, so Vika. This is actually one I like as well. This is the loot subscription. And so each time there's going to be a bit of a surprise. We have seen at least one game so far this tournament where someone got like the perfect artifact into a spatula, which was an automata emblem, into, like a bunch. So it can go pretty crazy, or it can actually be a pretty tame game. Some of the rewards are like a single Reforger.
Or a boot.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. The boot is definitely an option. So this will be interesting to see because not only will we have to see the first augment, but we'll have to see what the first loot drop is. And each loot drop is varied, right? There isn't some table of like different types of games. We could go from a boot to a spatula, back to a Reforger, back to an artifact anvil, so there's a lot of options here.
I'm not sure about the chances, but when I've talked to players, a lot of them really like to go for emblem starts when they're on this encounter. Are your chances of hitting another spatula really that high on this one?
I mean, I wouldn't call them high. They're about the same as anything else, but I think just playing to that out is still correct, knowing that you might have an extra spatula or a frying pan, because again, we've talked about before, like take Pit Fighter, for example. A single Pit Fighter emblem, not that great. 2 Pit Fighter emblems, that's a win condition.
I think the prio you have on certain comps has to change in this encounter because you have to have comps that are open to all the different varied possibilities you get as extra loot in terms of spatulas, +1 emblems, artifacts. There are certain comps that you get a certain drop and you're like, I can't use this. I'm suddenly down a big loot that I can't make use of, really. Chem Baron is one of the big comps here, and right away, Saideda's onto that.
I was getting excited looking at it because I was like, wow, an early Rennie? Ooh, boy.
Yeah, Chem Baron, I actually do like Chem Baron on this portal. This is a portal where you can wait, let those rewards come in, and then spike later. And because everybody's getting those rewards, you're not necessarily, okay, it's a Prismatic. Prismatic, I think the Shimmer Scale priority drops a little bit, but overall not bad here. And Minhee, by the way, gets the Unexpected Adventure, I believe is what icon that is. That is one that players right now think is generally very powerful. If you can guarantee that hits, it ends up being pretty good. And we get a support item from our loot subscription, so that's going to be good. Liluo also, we see 2 of them here actually. I forget the name of it, but it gives you a Tactician's Crown and a random emblem. So we'll have to see what random emblem each of them get. Tidal also going with the Wandering Trainer, so that's leaving some pretty big variance there to see what he gets. We also see some Lucky Gloves. Lucky Gloves, very powerful. Looking at these augments, the Lucky Gloves are going to be kind of your favorites to win streak, especially if you had a glove to start with here. Tidal does get Family. This is big. Family is really good early and gives you the option of a possible 5 family later. If the next augment gives him that family emblem, that could be an easy way to run away with this game.
And when you have 5 family, you do have heist into the top side, which does give you extra loot. A lot of the times the 10, which is the most common one, gives you 50% chance for another spatula.
Yeah.
We did see yesterday in the top 16 to qualify actually into this main stage on day 3. Itazor played a family game, found a family emblem on Tamel, which was very, very strong with a mana reduction. So we might see that happen later in the game.
Yeah, on the other side, by the way, we get to see some of the emblems that appeared here. One was Dominator, the other was Academy. So again, that's going to kind of push their line into a specific spot here. But yeah, Tidal was able to win that fight. And so now again, I'm looking at that 3-2 augment sort of going, where are we going from here?
There's a chance for Rennie for Liluo's board here on 2-2.
This is always a tough spot. I think upgrading a 3-star, a 3-cost, always makes it so difficult because your econ is going to be in the gutter for the rest of the game.
Yeah, the fact that he hit it is insane, though. That's a lot of value here. You can definitely win streak that to at least turn it around, but the fact that he already lost the first game, that hurts a bit. So pretty awkward here. Hopefully, at this point, you're kind of hoping the next loot subscription is going to give you extra gold so that you can kind of turn that economy back around, because like you said, otherwise it's going to be really awkward for a bit.
It is a big investment coming in. And taking a look at the lobby, there are 4 players now with additional emblems. So talking about the loot subscription and the potential winouts, everyone has the same thing in mind.
Yeah, for example, if the next one is a spatula, you know, our family player, right? That's an easy 5 family. You know, we talked about the Dominator player. That one's a little harder to go up with. But yeah, actually, not a lot of other big spatula outs here from what I'm seeing.
There's also a Rebel player, I believe, from Jeduso.
Yeah.
So a lot of possible conditions to be seen here.
Yeah, Rebel definitely an option. Getting a look at this board. So we can see the Rebel board here has the Rebel emblem. Now, yeah, at this point, because you took the Rebel emblem from your augment, it's pretty hard to get that second Rebel emblem. The one game I've seen at this tournament, we ran into a situation where they did have the Wandering Trainer in the emblem, but were unable to find the Jinx and ended up going 6th, which was a pretty disappointing end to that condition. But at least you have the early, 3 Rebel for now, can be 5 Rebel later. Right now, I'm kind of missing the Vex, hilariously enough, and so you need to find that pretty quick so you can get to that 5 Rebel.
That's kind of a risky game plan because you have to go 10 to fit everything on the board. So you do have to really be mindful of your econ, of trying to pump levels while also not rolling and finding a Jinx naturally, for example. So there's always that mix between trying to pump levels and still re-rolling and find the right units.
Taking a look at some of the other emblems coming out, it's going to be Xiaoqi with the Academy emblem. He currently doesn't have any Academy units on board, so not going to be making use of the tempo provided from sponsor items, at least for now.
One of the things I love about Academy Emblem is that it itself counts as a sponsored item.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Ooh, yeah, it does. So you get the extra benefit just from equipping that, and you can still have what feels like a 3 sponsored item character. So kind of provides a lot of power in that regard.
A bit of tech coming out. Rebel being denied here. Jeduso doesn't get that.
Yeah, Tidal getting the sword here. Again, the Lucky Gloves players likely fighting over the gloves. It was Liluo who actually takes the gloves, so the Lucky Gloves players don't get that, unfortunately. Hopefully he's win streaking with his Rennie 3 there, has the support item, so.
And taking a look at Minhee's board, that's actually a pretty good combo for the Exalted Adventure there. I'm not sure if that's exactly the 3-2 cost he had, but we saw that, oh, it is. So
No, I was going to explain. Okay. It's Camille, Renata, and Akali.
Camille, Renata, Akali.
That's a tough one.
That's hard.
The Camille at least is going to be relatively uncontested, so you should be able to get that. The Renata and the Akali, we have so many Rebel players, that one's going to be a little trickier. And that's the one he has the biggest lead on. Now remember, this augment now gives a lesser duplicator at the start of the stage to at least help you out. But it's going to have to hit that Renata pretty quick. And that would be an interesting spot where this would be the second game in a row now where he's tried to 3-star that Renata. Last game it didn't work out too well. Obviously this game it's a very different beast. We're not playing that Renata reroll comp instead of playing something else. But honestly, I feel like Camille would kind of be the thing you'd want to lean into. But again, we've seen Camille generally across the not be played, with the exception of the title game where he played that really well.
So Camille, Renata, the two most likely ones he needs to 3-stars. Those trait webs do seem quite far apart. Yeah.
There's the Enforcer, I guess, with Loris if you go for the Sentinel route, but even then it is a little bit tricky. We have seen with this augment specifically, some players have just kept the 3-star on the bench and really only use it for the loots. You're not forced to play them on your board to get the results from it.
Yeah, and I actually think that's generally correct. That's why I'm like, if anything, maybe you just lean into the Camille a little bit, maybe play that Ambusher line, and it should be a little bit extra powerful based on the loot that you got. The question is just how fast do you get there, because until you get there, you are down a Prismatic. And this is a very risky augment. And the thing I'll call out here with Minhee taking this augment, again, the cap on this is very high. Talking to a lot of the players here, they actually have been asking for this augment to be nerfed. They think it's too strong. But it is still a high-risk augment. If it doesn't pay off, Minhee could go, back-to-back 8s, which would be not what you want to see and almost take him out of the competition.
It would be really hard unless we get into one of those alternative situations like Vegas where we have a lot of games to play. We could go maximum of 8 just for everybody watching.
Meng Chungyun, I believe he does have the 4 Conqueror start that Mortdog loves, and 37 stacks already, full win streak on stage 2. This is probably one of the best Conqueror starts.
I love it. I love it.
Especially with Lucky Gloves, I think there's lots
and
of
Randwins.
great TG users in the Conqueror comp, with Form Swapper especially, with Mbessa later on as well. We're going to be looking at some possible Exodia combos with augments. Pandora's with Lucky Gloves is really, you can get so much more value from the augment if you find maybe 5, 6 TGs if you're patient enough coming into the late game.
Is that 2 Rennie 2s on stage 2? What's up with the Rennies here?
That is another Rennie 2, yes. So Rennie, showing up today apparently. That's true.
Is Jace at the venue? She's trying to get revenge. Oh wow.
She saw him during the show
interesting
match.
to note here, I'm pretty sure that's an item on. He took the 100 cash out.
Oh, so this is the Rennie, sorry, Renata reroll that we're seeing the CM players sort of utilize. You take almost every cash out just to make sure you get the Renata 3.
That's going to make it much harder for Minhee to actually hit the Renata.
All right, our loot subscription, by the way, was an artifact anvil.
Oh my
And you can see here Tidal slamming it right away.
So much gold as well.
Yeah, this is one of Violet's best items here, because all of a sudden you've got so many mini Violets to deal with, just punching up a storm, doing a lot of damage here. Does have a lot of gold, not finding a ton of Violets right now, only at 4. We'll see how deep he goes. Decides to stay at 50, and we see our next augment here. And again, Tidal looking for that family emblem to hit 5 family.
And we're seeing the tailoring here from Tidal, removing the Draven, removing the Darius here as well, trying to hit the 3-2 augments. We'll see if that'll be the case here. But Trenchcoat, we've saw, I think, the entire weekend how strong it is, especially if you have maybe even a second artifact onto that Violet in the future.
Yeah, considering it's loot subscription, there is a chance for more of that value to come through. But remember, everybody got an artifact. This isn't some exclusive thing to them. So we're up to see how everybody is using that artifact. On the other side here, our Conqueror player doing really well here. Not going to quite hit 65 here. It's going to put him at 61. But next fight is going to get extra rewards here.
That's a streak broken for Luo, so again having to work a little bit harder for that econ. Silver augments toning things down just a tiny bit for this 3-2 round.
A sigh of relief for everyone not named Tidal. It's like, okay, maybe not 4 games.
Yeah, the fact that it is a silver means nobody's going to get an extra emblem. There aren't really any outs there. Fire Sale, generally a pretty safe choice on the left here. I doubt we're taking Dumbify. That seems a little risky at this point here. And on the right side, we see Stellar Minhe's board here. Looking at what he's got a Quick Striker, so choosing to play around this Akali. But again, we talked about the Camille. Right now, only 1 Camille, 3 Akalis, and then we know Renata's contested. So this is a little rough. Choosing to use, by the way, the rerolls from his Silver Augment already. Still stuck at 1 Camille. This is, I was explaining, this is a high-risk Augment. I think the risk is not paying off here.
I don't think so either. It's going to be so tough because you take a look at Sidera also already having the 2-star Renata, another, just a couple out of the pool.
Yeah, it feels like Renata's pretty much out of, you're not going to be able to hit that. So you've got to go the Camille and the Akali. At least he has a couple of Akalis, but the Camille he seems pretty far behind on.
Which is wild because no one else is playing it.
Yeah.
Double knock up onto the back line here, but it does look like the Blighting Jewel, a great artifact pickup. It's not a DOT on Renata, but at least it is the magic penetration.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of extra power here, and it is a level 6 versus level 5. We've only got 6 Violets. Was able to find at least 2 more, but overall still kind of behind here. And we get a look at what looks to be a Visionary board here. We haven't seen a ton of Visionary past 4, especially with the Heimer nerf and the Malzahar nerf, but yeah.
That is a Garen.
It is a Garen, but it's also the combo I talked about, 3-1. Pandora's plus Lucky Gloves, a chance to roll multiple TGs all throughout the game. You do have to sacrifice sometimes a little bit of HP, waiting for those perfect rolls, but it's a greedy play style that really, I think, rewards you in stage 5 and 6 when you have so many strong units you want to itemize.
For Stellar Min, he's trying to find a bit of a win streak to preserve HP, and interesting combo coming up and not working out well for him. The backline actually targets because of the Herald right there. The backliners actually all focus fired the Akali, and unfortunate matchmaking gets his main carry taken out instantly.
Yeah, that item is pretty hard to use in isolation. You usually, hilariously enough, I've been finding putting it on tanks can actually work pretty well with the extra armor and MR. But you do need a lot of sustain to make sure that you don't just get burst down, because like you said, you do get targeted first. As we head to the carousel here, the 4 costs we're looking at are Echo, as well as Alawi and Twitch. Alawi, good for our Rebel player here. Stellar Min, he's going to take that. Works well with his Akali that he's playing. Has the 2 lesser duplicators as well, but overall, nothing crazy going on this carousel.
I want to call out the silver augments that we're seeing. We have 3 Fire Sale players.
Yep. Fire Sale, generally another one that is considered pretty strong, because on average, if you think about the structure, it's like 2 to 3 to 4 gold later. But it is still a silver augment that is just gold, and sometimes you can low roll it if it gives you 1 cost, and so it can feel pretty bad sometimes.
I almost prefer it over raining gold at times. I just feel like I'm lucky because you can sometimes snag the 5 costs, the 4 costs. Pretty crazy.
It's always funny, by the way, when you have Fire Sale and the first turn your 6 cost appears in the shop and it snags that, you're just like, yes!
You hit the jackpot right there.
Let's take a look at Title's count on his units. He's 2 away from the Violet here, so not doing too bad. If you get your board completed on 4-1, I think you're happy enough.
Now, obviously, part of the reason Title played this was the Wandering Trainer, but I do like this composition. We've seen this composition be very strong throughout the weekend as a top 4 comp. It doesn't really win a lot of games, what we've seen, but even second places, it's done pretty well. And so again, if you're starting off with a first place, what better than a nice, reliable top 4 comp to continue that lead? So I do like this comp selection from Title.
We did see a glove picked up in the carousel from Lucky Gloves players, so already trying to move towards having so many TGs available for the stage 4 roll down, especially some extra Conqueror stacks here. A very strong board here.
Ooh.
Finds the Leonas, finds the GP2 already with 3 items. Red buff so strong in this GP early on.
It's always so nice when you just get an automatic upgrade from something already on your board, and you also have the Academy emblem to boot with it. A very nice high roll from Xiaoqi. That's going to continue his win streak on Conqueror.
I usually just get 5 gold.
I mean, we are looking at the situation here. 2 of our win streak players on the left and the right. The question is, will they face up against each other?
Ooh.
Doesn't look like it.
And the Academy items for this game will be Archangel Staff, Steadfast Heart, and Titan's Resolve. I think Archangel is especially something you can lean into heavily for a Heimerdinger.
No, they are playing each other, I think.
Oh, okay. So, yep. So this will decide who gets to keep the win streak here. Yep. And so it looks like the Lux is going to do pretty well here. The Ezreal tried his best here. but that is going to continue the win streak. 93 health now, feeling really good spot here. On the other side, we see a Zeri here trying to do a little bit of work here. Zeri, not something we see a lot of at this tournament, but unfortunately isn't going to be able to get through the Rumble on the other side. That is a very early Rumble. And Rumble early is especially good because you're going to be able to buy a lot of those upgrades. And when you get it early, it can be really worth investing in.
That's so crazy from Cider. So he's actually going to level 7 to roll for 2 costs in the Renata, which is something a lot of players are doing with the shop odds.
Yeah, so we get a count here, by the way, and what I'm seeing is 5 Akalis, 4 Renatas, 3 Camille's. So really far behind where you want to be with this. And only at 39 health here. This feels like what you're praying for is that the loot subscription gives you a bunch of gold, and you're going to roll down this turn. I feel like you kind of have to this turn.
Well, let's find out. It's a gold orb.
It was a bunch of gold. It was. Look at this.
Oh, yeah, 86 gold.
Sorry. So that is best case scenario for him. I think right now you roll this down, you use all the duplicators you've got, and you hit this turn as best case scenario. Again, we're at 6 Akalis, 7 Renatas, 8 Renatas. Yeah, 7 Renatas. Is rolling really deep here.
There's nothing. Ooh, Renata 3.
Yep.
2 more Akalis. 1 more Akali.
He's using the duplicators.
Perfect.
Oh, but he left.
Doesn't have time
he couldn't
to
pick it up in time.
Oh.
The APM check not successful will be maybe another loss here, but then should stabilize the rest of this stage 4 with all the extra loot coming through. And it's a great Akali positioning here as well onto the Silco.
Yeah, the one thing worth noting, though, is he did have to spend about 70 gold to get there. And remember, everybody got the same thing from loot subscription, so that gold boost went to everybody. So yes, he did hit and get stronger, but so did everybody else. He's going to take some damage here, probably dropping to sub 30 health here, 27. And so now we'll get a chance to see what the rewards were from those orbs. We see a full item anvil.
Take invested. Make it back up.
That invested feels so bad.
I feel like Flurry of Blows might be a better choice here. Calculated Enhancement can be okay. Feels like you need combat here. Max Cap this late, I'm probably not taking that. Piercing Lotus is probably the choice here, yeah. Gets a support item and 2 full items. So again, a lot of combat power here, but you know, he has a Renata 3 on the bench that doesn't really fit the comp. Grabs a Zerat portal here, and now we're in a situation where our carry is Akali, which I don't know. I'm not thrilled at where we're at right now.
Akali got nerfed too, didn't she?
Akali 3 got a bit of a small nerf. The other units around all got buffed, so like, you know, Mbessa got buffed, Twisted Fate got buffed, and does have good items here. You know, we have the Radiant Hodge, you know, so it also got a Radiant Refactor.
Right.
So pretty powerful. I do like the fact that we now have the Edge of Night to go with the Cutlass. So if you take too much damage, you're going to be able to just shrug that off and heal right back up with the Radiant Hodge. So as far as Akali goes, this is as powerful as you can kind of make her. The question is the surrounding units enough? And so right now this fight is good, but again, we're talking about how we're down gold as everybody else ramps up. You know, can we turn this around? But again, this is the power of that augment, right? That was so much. It was a Radiant Refractor, a support item, and 2 full items. If you think about that being your prismatic, that's an insane amount of value.
2 boards.
A Rumble 2?
Oh, wow. That's insane.
What?
Jedu So and Xiaoqi both hit a potential double +2 augments, so +2 emblems. So that's going to be very interesting in seeing if these high rolls are just going to go through.
Especially with the gold injection we saw at the start of stage 4. We talked about going 10, usually a very hard task unless you're incredibly stable and win streaking all throughout the early game. It wasn't the case for Yedizor, so now with the extra gold injection, it's all about trying to make it to 10 while staying as strong as possible.
Yeah, see, like you mentioned Rumble too, but he's level 9. He's level 9 on 4-3.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, like that gold injection is what's scaling everybody up here to be so much here. Right now we're looking at our win streaker board, still at 93 health here, playing that Academy line. And the Heimerdinger with the Zhonya's, it is a Heimerdinger 1, but that is going to allow him to drop the aggro and not die to this Mbessa. Unfortunately, the rest of the front line up against this Garen with 2 Warmogs is just so much to get through here, and this is going to be the end of the win streak.
Warmogs and then Rand wins.
Xiaoqi's fine because he's sitting on 50 gold and 93 HP, so he's definitely kind of like skimming through this phase of the game for now.
Trying to push to 9 potentially in stage 5 at the very start of it if he has enough HP to work with. We're seeing a few 5 costs now on the carousel here in stage 4, Malzahar and Savika, but also for the Academy player, a Heimerdinger potentially an upgrade could be massive.
Yeah, by the way, we look at some of the augments here. We see the Academy emblem, so that is going to be double Academy, so that's going to be really strong. Belt Overflow, which explains why that Garen was so difficult to deal with. Radiant Refractor for the Violet here, giving the Violet a Radiant item, so that's a Trenchcoat Radiant item Violet. If we can get something like Ultimate Hero, that could spike pretty insanely. So a lot of power on this board.
With all the extra gold, you could also see players trying to go for the alternate win cons of going again for a 3-star 4 cost. So you have to be scouting, you have to be contesting, especially the player that is on a line by himself, especially those maybe I think a little bit less uncontested 4 costs.
Yeah, I really want to see Jeduso if he actually got what he got out of the Call to Chaos. Because
he got
Rebel +1.
Double Locket.
Oh, double Locket.
A lot of frontline.
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Yeah, for the Rebel frontline, I'm not as big a fan of that drop here, but it does have the value with the Randuins at least, so that's okay, but is stuck on this Zoe 1 at 8. So when we talk about power right now, there's no Jinx, and the Zoe 1, that's not going to be great. Has the LeBlanc at least, but the LeBlanc we've talked about before with the Shojin is still mono-locked for 3 autos, so it's not the best. That being said, if you look at these LeBlanc items, and this becomes a Victor later, that's best case scenario. If you can turn that into a Victor, you get that double stun with the Rebel. Does have the Jinx as well, so you could move the Shojin over to the Jinx. So
I have a question.
Yes.
With loot subscription, is it ever possible to get a 6 cost dropped out of those loot orbs?
Nope. Nope.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not one of the drop possibilities. All right, looking for an anomaly buff likely for the Akali here. Bully is a really safe choice here. 12% damage amp, but gets shot up to 36 if they're lower star level. So as long as you're not fighting a 3-star champion, this Akali now has even more damage, and so there's just a lot of power here. So combined with the Jeweled Lotus, you get the crit, the hand. Like this Akali is definitely as capped as she can be.
There's only one reroll player out there as well.
Title.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bully's going to be a really good choice here. We see some giant size, some bulwark, nothing wasted for title here. You know.
Oh, interesting. For Violets.
It's actually for Corki, so I don't think this is correct.
Yeah,
Could be a graphical error on the
Yeah.
webcam.
Okay.
I was going to say, is this new tech?
Oh,
Yeah, I've never seen it.
wait. He got Ultimate Hero.
Yes.
So he got Ultimate Hero.
That fits
nice.
a little bit
That makes sense.
better.
Yeah, so that's a really big hit for title because what that's going to allow him to do is he's going to wait 3 turns, and on 5-2, this Violet's going to become 4-star. This was the terror of the last patch, but with these items in particular, Trenchcoat, Radiant Sterix,
So much
and a
HP.
Bloodthirster, so much power.
And with so much gold left, like I didn't look like he had to roll very deep to be able to get
Yeah.
that either.
Yeah, it's definitely with the change this patch. People don't usually go that deep, so it must have just been something that appeared pretty quick. Now, that being said, one of the things about this setup is he has a lot of value on this Violet. It's going to be very good, but generally you also want at least one good damage dealer behind that to really support the Violet. Normally it's something like the Draven. And looking at the items, there wasn't anything that was really jumping out as like incredibly impressive. On the right side here, by the way, the Liluo with the Mundo, look at these Mundo items. These items
Innervating
are
Locket.
really good. Innervating Locket, Warmogs on the Mundo, as well as the fact that he's playing Dominator, so that's going to scale up the AP, which is going to scale up that healing. If you don't have anti-healing against this board, you are probably not killing that Mundo.
A decent amount of AD in this lobby as well, so the Bramble going to be very, very clutch in terms of facing the Corkis, facing the Violets, facing the reroll players especially.
And we're going to have another loot drop coming out on this main stage. What is it going to be?
Yeah, usually a tiny orb like that is like a Reforger. It's nothing amazing. So I don't think that's going to be something that swings anything too wildly here. But yeah, we see some of the board getting capped here. The Academy board on the left side here. Really looking for that Heimer. That's the thing he's struggling to find, though. Heimer actually pretty contested this lobby, which, again, tournament meta coming into the day was not what people thought was going to happen. Isn't able to find it, though, and so now we end up with a 6 Sentinel 4 Academy, but only a Heimer 1.
Holding Corkis as well on 5 right now could be an alternate path to victory if no one else in this lobby is playing Corki as a 4-cost carry.
And I believe this is Nothing Wasted Corki, which is actually kind of a lot of players were raving about this in the Emissary comp. One of the underlooked options in the line.
Oh, I mean, it's just casting so much. Even with the double Archangels, Heimerdinger just not able to get through the rest of that back line.
The big thing with that Heimerdinger is the fact that you have the Zanya, so if you ever get into trouble, you can sort of drop aggro and stay alive, and that's going to scale you back up.
One worry, Tidal just had a pretty big loss now on 12 HP because he's essentially kind of down an anomaly with the Ultimate Hero waiting to happen. So that is the downside of picking Ultimate Hero now after the changes. We will see if Tidal, after his dominant win, can now come back and clutch up and have a comeback story come through.
It's going to be tough because Sidera just hit level 10.
Wow. Yep, level 10, Malzahar 2 here. All that extra gold from loot subscription just really capped out everyone's boards really well. And so this is also where I'd be worried about Stellar Minhee, for example, now that everyone's starting to get really capped. Tidal right now, we get a look at his board here. The Ultimate Hero has procced, Violet's there. But again, I talked about that backup damage, and his backup damage right now is a Ginsu's Shiv Draven. Violet has already been procced open here. That's really scary. Does have the Sterix, though. The Sterix is going to give a lot of value. And you can see the Radiant Sterix doing a ton of work there. The way it interacts there, just giving so much health to those clones here. So at least now that Ultimate Hero procced, I feel like that's going to allow him to stabilize for a bit. If he can get to the carousel, get a third item for that Draven, that should help. And sure enough, like I called, Stellar Minhee now starting to struggle that everybody else is reaching these really high caps.
Did you see how quickly that Mundo regained all of its HP as well? It was at half, and then all of a sudden, it was completely full HP again.
Yeah, so now look at this health, by the way. From 2nd place all the way down to 8th place, 29 to 11. This is one of those lobbies where you are praying you don't just get the wrong matchup, because one bad matchup here can knock you out, especially for our bottom 3 players. You know, a 14 health deficit it can kill you at this stage. It's tough, but it can. And so there's just so much power on the board here between the artifacts, the support items, the extra gold. These are some of the most capped boards you're going to see, as well as 2 prismatic augments.
Oh, this is an Mbessa 2 giant-sized on the other side, but I'm patiently waiting to see if Tidal can beat this Sidera board. Level 10 versus the family board.
If the Violet splits into the back, then it could be huge, but already she's being targeted. Still, all the frontliners are now down, and Violet is able to ransack onto the Malzahar, onto the Heimerdinger. Another easy win for Tidal, and could be an elimination for Sidera, for the Brazilian player.
That's 2 bottom 4 finishes for Sidera, and one of the reasons that this build is so strong is you actually do see the aggro drop when it comes out from the trenchcoat, allowing him to walk directly into the back line.
Yeah, that aggro drop really, really powerful. And again, the way the Radiant Sterix is interacting with the trenchcoat clones, giving just so much extra health. That Ultimate Hero finally proccing here. The 3-turn nerf did hurt. We lost some health for that, but not enough. And now we're in that really capped state here. And so, yeah, Sidera unfortunately gets knocked out here. Stellar Minhee down to his last life. And this matchup is going to decide a lot here. And that is, again, a lot of our America and EMEA players kind of struggling right now in this lobby.
Look at the BM. Yeduzor knows that Xiaoqi is waiting for that Korok 3. Potentially, we saw Minhee also holding one. So players are scouting and making sure that no one gets a sneaky free win in this game, too.
Yeah, I do like that heads-up scouting to try to prevent that here. On the left side, we see Stellar Minhee again with that amazing Akali, but you look at the rest of this board, right? You have a Renata that really has no business on this board. You've got an okay front line, some quick strikers doing some work here, rolling, finds the Loris too, but I don't think that really changes too much here.
And it's tough because Minhee's at level 8 while everyone else has hit level 9 at this point. You have so many upgrades. And you could also still run into Tidal, which is a huge world of hurt. But it looks like it's going to be Xiaoqi on the other side for Minhee.
Yeah, and you can see, by the way, there is a red buff Victor on the other side here. That stun is going to be really deadly. Is not going to be able to kill the Victor before the stun. At least we had the Quicksilver to try to drop some of that aggro. But right now, the Victor kind of getting untouched here, providing that Shred and Sunder. Akali does take it out here. Twisted Fate doing okay. Heimer with the Zonya's proc here. But the Renata should actually... Oh, no. It's going to... And that's the problem. The Heimerdinger with the Zonyas is enough. And Stellar Minhee goes out in 7th place here. So that's an 8th and a 7th. Really just not what you're hoping for.
Looks like Tidal Shop had a Savika 2 there. So another big upgrade for a player who already dominated game 1.
Sorry, I was reacting and I heard the crowd with me because of how close that fight really was.
He did a last-second swap for the Akali, and unfortunately it was probably not the correct decision. Didn't go on to the Heimer for the early proc right there. And that means it's 3 points for Minhee, which is, it's a long way to 20, let's just put it that way.
Yeah, for sure here. And yeah, like you mentioned, we have the Savika 2 now, so just giving another extra carry here with that Thieves Gloves. We're going to watch the left side fight. The Violet 4, just so powerful to deal with that combination of items. The Victor stun does go off here, but Violet still at full health. plenty of time here. We're going to see the trench coat split onto the Draven, though. And now the Violet, those Radiant Sterics are starting to proc. Heimerdinger gets the Zhonya's, though, so this is sort of that counterplay. The Violet still does lose.
Perfect.
Tidal is still alive, though. It's a 1-unit loss that is not going to kill him. Tidal stays in it, and again, the power of that Zhonya's preventing the kill, dropping the aggro, letting the Heimer continue to ramp up with those missiles, and barely wins the fight.
And I do want to say, a lot of times it does come down to the positioning. When you're playing this setup, you actually want the Violet to pop early. That increases your DPS massively, and you know, the damage was coming on from the left side. We saw a very late Violet pop. After she did that, much easier focus going through.
Ideally, you would have liked to have the full left side swap instead, so when the pop does happen, she's immediately onto the backline, pops the Zhonya early, and gets onto all the backliners.
All right, by the way, another loot subscription coming out here. It is a gold orb here. That is a lot of gold. Yep, so we do see some units here. Tidal finds a Warwick, is going to pop his anvil here. The question is, will he play the Warwick? You know, pretty hard to fit in, but you know, when you have that 6 cost, you generally want to consider it here. Could put the Warmogs there. I do think a third item for Draven is going to be pretty key here. On the right side, no major upgrade, but we do have that Victor in place, and that Ambessa looking really good. The Garen with that belt overflow sharing so much health to the Ambessa here. And so again, we see another fight here. Will Tidal stay alive up against the Silco board?
It's the Lilo board, and one of these players is going to get knocked out.
Yep. Yeah, both at 1 health. It's very, very close here. Again, the Violet has already been procced, split in half. The Draven, though, did get a Deathblade. That's going to be a nice upgrade. Wow. The Radiant Steric's proc here. It's looking pretty good for the Violet. Is going to kill most of the carries, got on the back line, and it looks like Lilo is going to get knocked out here. Tidal stays alive and knocks out champion versus champion fight, but yeah, it should be a top 4 here. Looks like we're in our top 4 now, so Tidal does squeeze out a top 4.
You can see the difference there. Violet pops, and 10 seconds in, Silco's down. It's just about cleaning up the frontliners, a slow fight to end it off, but a guaranteed win there for Tidal yet again. So we talked about it. He survived on so little HP, waiting for Ultimate Hero to come through. Once it did, if he's on the right side, he will be dominating most of these fights.
So I'm trying to get a good look at the scoreboard here. We're down to 2.
Whoa.
Oh.
We're down to 2. So Tidal gets a top 2 out of that win. That was really big here. So shows how close the lobby was. Here we are in our final 2. You know, up against a win streaker here, so I don't imagine Tidal's the favorite here. Is this another win for Academy Heimerdinger? Are we going to see back-to-back Academy Heimerdinger wins?
It was actually so close. He nearly stopped the stun. Warwick doesn't actually get any action throughout that one, and Heimer still has the lasagnas.
I think Tidal is eliminated with that one. Nothing can stop this Shaoqi board. And Heimerdinger, the surprise champion for the weekend.
This is a 2-man tournament so far. Shaoqi and Tidal, back-to-back final off.
Right, we have 2 players at 15 points in 2 games. Like you said, this is an incredibly top-heavy. And we talked about how the narrative was going to be established here. Well, it just has been. The narrative is there are 2 players here that are wrecking everybody else, putting on a clinic, and they could hit check in the very next game.
And the last time we saw a 2-player dominance like this was all the way back in set 6, because when Gadgets with Lindwall actually dominating another CN player, and that was really, really hard to see because you want this to go as far as possible. When there's only 1 player breaking away, it's easier for other players to contest and stop that.
I still think it was 5 games. If I'm remembering that championship correctly, I think we still had 5 games. So there is some hope that it's not going to just finish the way that Tidal was able to win his first Tactician's crown. But what a